Okay, I suppose I got into this agenda about 15 years ago. I was very lucky as a school teacher. My name's Mark Robinson. I used to teach at a school in the Lake District, Ambleside. And through the DFES scheme at that time, I became what was called a pathfinder for ICT. It was a cheap way of getting broadband in the school. Well, it isn't really broadband, it was ISDN at 64K. And if we joined the two lines together, we could get 128K. But it was a hugely exciting time because we didn't have any definitions. There was no definition of games-based learning. It was all just technology. So we didn't have any problems playing with games one day, playing with simulations another game, other things another day. I think now we start to use these terms and separate them all out, but really all just, for me, they were all just technology. What I'd like to do is maybe just talk you through some of the things we put on our website about 10 years ago. They're still valid today. I can't seem to get rid of this website. It's viewed tens of millions of times a year. Mainly for the games that are on this page, all of them designed by students. Here's a classic one, all right? Your number's up, right? These children made this. Oh, it's got sound and everything. All right. And it's quite simple. You fill in the names. So this can be John. And this is Zed the robot. And this can be Amy. And player 4 is. All right. And you can click a character and you can move on. Now you can see at this time they had no conception of widescreen monitors. So these are some graphics that they weren't using, they'd put to the side, but you normally wouldn't see those. And I can go through the rules of the game silently for some reason. And if you go through the rules of the game that they've prepared, and finally, you get a question, 30 plus 23, I know that one. And I can choose a key, it will zoom in, and there'll be a lovely voice there. And was that the answer, 53? Too late, I wasn't fast enough. But a game designed by children, using at that time Flash 4. It was about the only tool that I could discover that allowed me to make games. Why was I making games, though? In fact, I need to go to somewhere a little bit earlier. Our first experience with games was commercial off-the-shelf games. I didn't realize that was the term we used at the time. They were just games that were popular. SimCity 2000 really got to me because this is a game that embodied everything that I still think today is what should be in an educational game. It had authentic scenarios. You could go out and you could see places in the real world where these problems played out. I asked the children to make a guide for other teachers, probably around about 11 years ago when this game just came out. And they describe all the things you can do, how you can look after the water supplies, where you build, all the infrastructure, and how to play it. I even got them to explain to other teachers why it was good in school. This is a task you could actually do with children today. Why don't you just send them home with a worksheet and say, go and explain which game is good and why, and you'll come back with a load of data which you could apply in your own classroom and choose the games that they choose. Because if they can't give a good justification, then you can say, well, we're not going to use that. But this one, it involved, for them, they felt it involved mathematics. They felt it involved making real decisions about economics. We know a lot of children today want to know how economies work and budgets work. They also know you can cheat. So you could email them if you wanted the special key code that would give you lots of extra money. And it had newspapers that were actually dynamically generated, so there's literacy in there as well. Children identified that. But we didn't do this game alone. It sat inside a much wider topic. So when we were looking at the water system, we were also visiting the water treatment works at Barrow-in-Furness. And that was actually the most engaging day, because if they know what happens to poo and all of that lot, I'll tell you what, they'll listen for hours. So it doesn't just exist as a game. There was a much wider context around it. We ended up making, in the construction game within SimCity, we made our own environment of Ambleside, and we made the Barrow-in-Furness Peninsula. And then they modelled out how you could actually make an economical growing community in those two different landscapes, and they learned a lot, or reinforced a lot, that they probably could guess. You know, if it's flat land, it's near the sea, you can usually be quite profitable. If there's lots of mountains, you've got to bulldoze down, it's expensive and people might not like to live there. So that was, a very good experience. But really, I realized that the game designer was the one who'd done all the learning about cities. And that, for me, was a very, very important moment, because at that point I said, I don't really want to use anyone else's game, because I know the person who's learning the most is the person who sat there and thinks, how does a city work? So how can I represent all of that big complexity of city construction in a game? That process that the game designer went through is actually the process I want all children to go through. And so, that led us to make little games like this, or even more sophisticated games. So I said to my kids, when I was your age, there was a game in the arcades, and it used to take pounds and pounds and pounds of my 10 pences. And people might recognize the game. And it works like this. And there's no sound, I don't know why. And suddenly children discovered some of the classic video games. And then they said, oh, can we make some more and start inventing our own? We had some guinea pigs in school. So a group of girls spent a couple of playtimes and they've built rodent racers. And you can... It's hard playing two players at the same time, but and I can run around like this. And they can crash and things like that. Of course, the boys got hold of it after that, and they added machine guns on the back and kind of mutated the guinea pigs. But, quite good. But eventually, we kind of created quite sophisticated games that sat with within very, very big topics. I think this was probably the most exciting one that we did. Not simply because of how good the game was that the children produced, but the quality of the wider learning that had gone on. My original qualification actually wasn't in IT at all. It was in outdoor studies, environmental science. So one of the activities we used to do was to take the children out into the playing fields or out into the environment in the Lake District, and they would simulate predators and prey as classes and groups. Some children would be out lions, some would be vultures. They would have skeletons made out of paper that they would drop if something was killed. Whole array of very complex formula that dictates if an environment can survive. And we tried to simulate this in the game, and I think the girls did really well on this one. So what we have here, again, is the same engine that was using the guinea pigs to move around. It's been used here. And I've caught a zebra. And if I bring it back to the lions get some energy. We can hunt in packs, and they'll avoid us. The learning is now not in playing the game and moving my little fingers around. That's the nice little bit at the end. The real learning was spending the hours and hours and hours fine-tuning all of these arrays of data behind. How fast can the lions lose their energy? How many zebras do you need to have a reasonable breeding population? Can you have too many vultures? Can you have too few vultures? And what's interesting, the game kind of plays out like one of these Gaia theorems. If you play it long enough, you can just about get to a balance that's about the right ratio of predators to prey. A fabulous experience for the class. It's all in the little details. If I move too quickly, the lion energy runs out. And the children jump to a level that says if the lion energy equals 0, you've not caught enough food to make up for the energy you spend hunting and moving. You've not survived. These are made by 10-year-old girls. The potential in our children is phenomenal if you can find ways to put the tools in front of them and the stimulation for them to go and explore them. I think it's challenging because I was given an opportunity. I say, go off and be a pathfinder. We all have to be pathfinders, I'm afraid, today. And, not many people feel that they can do what I can do. If I hadn't been told to be a pathfinder, I don't think I would have done this. And that's what I'm hoping today. Just go out and be pathfinders. Might not be as sophisticated as this, but we've seen a tool just a few minutes ago which will allow children to create these very complex scenarios. Go off and do it because the children can. That's really about all I want to say. Thank you.